Thank you so much for stepping up and being here and just taking the time. Everybody that you see here in staff, all of us are volunteers. And I just want to remind everybody that it takes just one person to be able to step up. And look how many people have stepped up to make such an incredible experience happen. So, number one, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you from all of the players. We have over 500 players, and we had to get coaches. We had to get staff. We had an incredible amount of sponsors reach out, and they also stepped up to the plate to make this season happen. We have fields that are almost in HD now, and there's going to be even more incredible things to keep coming. And with that being said, that is the hugest shout out to any sponsor thinking future and past that has tried to help this league get to where it needs to be for the fundamentals and just the caring love for sports and our children and players, and setting the standard for many years to come. These children are going to have memories that last a lifetime, as well as the coaches, the volunteers. We're all creating memories, not just for ourselves, but more importantly, for our youth who's going to grow up and they're going to be members of society at some point. And everybody's doing an incredible job as far as it comes to stepping up, because that is probably the hardest thing. It's easy to complain and it's harder to step up and do something about it. And that's one of the reasons why I came into play as a volunteer. I was a parent at some point that was upset about what I saw. I was like, there's more to it. I need to understand a little bit more. So with that, I became more and more involved. And then I created such a love for helping and volunteering that I didn't want to give it up. And I've seen so much of that happening with people as far as our coaches or volunteer staff, our board members, and our sponsors. I see our sponsors just standing from the fence, just nodding their head recently, just in appreciation, like they did this too. And without them, without you, none of this would be happening.
Hey, everybody. First off, thank you, all of our coaches, all of our volunteers. It's a big thing for you guys to step up for the kids. And it's taken a lot of volunteers to get our league back to where it is today. So first off, with the coaches, thank you for rising to the challenge. Preseason, when I set the practice schedule, we asked for like 3 days, and I was really blown away with how often you guys came down, how you emphasized the pitching and catching opportunities. Now that the batting cages are all lit, you guys utilize those properly. You've figured out exactly where you need to be within the batting cages and your bays. And it's just made me really proud to see how you guys have collaborated, shared space, and basically just practiced these kids a bunch. And I can't wait to see what that transfers to the field when games start.
Happy 2026 spring season. Just want to come on and talk a little bit about us using GameChanger this year. I know some teams have used GameChangers in the past, just for your team. What we'll be doing this year is using it as a league as a whole. So I've reached out to some coaches already and gotten some of the teams already on GameChanger in the full league as a whole. But what I've gone and done now is taken the league and divided them into individual divisions. So each division will have their own quote unquote league on GameChanger. That way, the teams that are in that division will be able to see their standings on that homepage. So instead of all the teams being in a conglomerate of just all the baseball teams, all the divisions in one, each team will be in their specific division based on their age. And as far as tracking on GameChanger, the main thing we want to use GameChanger for is making sure we're tracking how our kids are getting on base, scoring. When it comes to fielding errors, and that's not going to be important. We just want to make sure that we're tracking their at-bats, how they're getting on base, making sure that it's a hit. If the ball is hit in the outfield, the batter reaches first base and makes it to second on an overthrow. That's not a double, that's a single. We'll be using the GameChanger stats to have good data when selecting for All-Stars. So we would like to make sure that it's up to date by the teams being all on the same league. We'll be able to go back and review should we need to and update and make sure that it's, done accurately. And of course, if there's any questions that anyone has regarding GameChanger, feel free to send me a message in most of the WhatsApp groups or however you guys will be able to reach me.
We're here with the VP of softball, Tamala, and we just wanted to go over a few things, just some dugout etiquette. As a coach, you're not going to be able to have eyes absolutely everywhere. But the best thing we can do is try our best and try to systemize everything to where it's going to help you for the better. There should always be someone in the dugout with the players at all times. I know it's really difficult to have all hands on deck. Maybe that one team might not have as many coaches or volunteer staff. But we really do need to start setting the example right in the beginning, even before opening day, because that's where it's really going to start. So setting that expectation for our players and our parents, setting the example for the entire season. Tamala, are there any points, anything that maybe you've seen in the past that we could definitely work on?
So overall, just teaching these players, I believe that when we're teaching the players about the game, we're also teaching them about respect for each other. So that comes into play, especially in the dugout, because they're all crowded in. They're all excited. They're seeing all these plays on the field with their teammates, and it's easy to get loud. So overall, having our equipment where it's supposed to go, knowing not to be yanking on your fence. We would think that it's common sense. So it is a good reminder for coaches to throw in there, hey, let's not be pulling on the fence, especially because we are working on fixing some of these fences. Keeping our equipment where it's supposed to go. Also making sure that our adult that is in the dugout has their proper qualifications, their fingerprint, their abuse awareness, all of that. That is important. Overall, just talking to the kids and letting them know what's appropriate and what's not, because it is easy for that to all go out the window when they're excited. Keeping it cleaned up too, because the dugouts, it's easy for it to become a mess with sunflower seeds and gum and all the things our kids love. So keeping everything cleaned up after each other, keeping lids on our bottles so bottles aren't being spilled over, because we all know that ants love sugar and kids love Gatorade. So
We're going to talk a little bit about like what our pregame etiquette looks like and what you need to have set up for your game and how we kind of want that to flow. And we really want to set a standard across the board for the league as to what that looks like for the kids, so they can really get used to what that looks like, so they can get the consistency. And we realize that all you coaches you're independent in your thought process. And so this is just a standard that we would like for you to try to set to get yourself started. So Ruby, would you talk about a little bit about how the kids need to report to the coaches as the game is going to get kicked off?
Okay, so on game day, you want to have already discussed a game day ritual or game day routine with your kids. That way they know, your parents know, and there won't be a whole bunch of questions happening on the day of, because you want a lot of organization to make things go by quickly. So pregame, you want to have your kids meet with you to the best of their ability, because I know everyone works, and getting kids out of school and onto the field, it can be difficult, but at least 15 to 20 minutes so that they'll have time to meet you at your location, and you'll have them all in one place. And then you can either do your stretch, your pregame, or warm-ups, and then they'll be ready to go on field once it's time for game time. Starting on time will help the games or the fields remain on time going throughout the day. Depending on your game time, because I know those early game times, it'll be hard to get those kids there 30 to 45 minutes early. But you also want to keep in mind that the better they are warmed up, the better they're going to be. So if you do have the time to get them there 30 minutes before so that you can do a full warm up, it will be very beneficial for, you as a coach and the team, you guys' success, to go ahead and go through your warm up, your stretches, then to throwing in, whatever you're going to have your kids doing before getting into the game. If your game is that second game, be mindful of the field that's on the field coming out. So making sure that your meetup spot is away from where the kids are going to be exiting, to reduce the chances of there being a lot of traffic and you kind of losing some kids along the way. So you want to make sure that your meetup point is away from where, and most of the fields are set up so that there are multiple entrances into the field, that as the kids are leaving the dugouts, you can enter in another way so that you're not going in and out the same way. So for example, on Barnes, the kids that are coming out of the dugout can come out of the dugout. Your team can come in on that outside fence and go ahead and put their stuff down and start, doing their warm-ups while the kids exit. And then you can go into the dugout once, they fully exited.
With what Ruby said, as far as the changeover between early game and a late game, When you can arrive early for your early game, you get your parents to get their kids there as fast as they possibly can, get loose. Now that secondary game, we're going to have to use other spaces to get the kids warmed up because they're not going to have field access. Over the years, I've seen most of the successful teams that I've witnessed always are putting the bat on the ball pre-game. So softball cages are always going to be open on game nights. So it's highly, highly advised that you get your team to have that as kind of your meetup area for throwing and putting some bats on the ball. Because like Ruby said, that's gonna relate straight to the field. Baseball is going to be the same way. Our batting cages, our Kent Lily batting cages are going to be wide open on game nights, and preferably hop in there, start getting the bats on the ball. You do not want your players to see a live ball for the first time in swinging their bat in game. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, whether it's wiffle balls, smush balls, heavy ball, whatever your system is as a coach, that's going to translate to the field. Now, changing over in between games, I think as a coach, I think it's very, very important to talk to your kids after the game. Whether you win, whether you lose, whatever happens, there's always things within the game that we can learn about. So a post-game breakdown and a discussion is huge. Now, we just don't want that discussion to happen on the field as we're trying to interchange the games. Like Ruby said, we're trying to keep the games on time so that we're not keeping the later kids out later than they need to be. We've all got school the next day. Another big part of our pregame setup is knowing our responsibilities. So our home team is going to be our official book. Now we're using the GameChanger system this year as our official book instead of keeping it on paper. So that's a home team responsibility. Home team, you're also going to report to the third base side. So you can let your fans know any field that we have, third base is the home base side, first base is the visitor side. The visitor responsibility is to provide an announcer. Now that announcer will announce the games and they'll also operate the scoreboard. More than welcome to have one of your children help you, but we do need some adult supervision or at least some capable supervision to operate the scoreboard so that the game functions properly. So another thing that we want to really emphasize is our post-game etiquette and what our responsibilities. So we covered talking to our team as a group. And the other big part is we want to keep our dugouts clean at the end. Don't leave any trash that was not there before you got there. And then the last thing is we've really worked hard at getting our fields back to a better condition. We're going to have field rakes on the fields. So the responsibilities of our coaches after the games is to utilize those rakes and to kind of fix up what happened during the game and to get the fields back to how we arrived to them. So best responsibilities, our home team is in charge of home plate and the mound. The visiting team, you're in charge of third base and first base. And really, it's just a quick touch-up, whether that's in between the first and second game or whether that's at the very end of the night. And we're also in the process of getting the proper tarps to cover the mound and to cover home plate so that we can preserve for those midday rains because we don't want those killing our games that afternoon if we can prevent them. As a league, we will be using weather apps that are consistent across the league to notify when games need to be suspended. Once lightning strikes within a 10-mile radius, we're required to take everyone out of the complex for 30 minutes. And we wait and see if there's another strike within that 30 minutes. That's going to be something that we're consistent across the board. So softball, we shouldn't have a rain delay on baseball and then look over and see softball playing their ball games. We're going to be consistent as a board in shutting the fields down and making sure that our children are safe. I would highly suggest that you keep that in mind for your practices. Utilize some app that will give you a lightning indication. And in that time, you can basically decide whether it's worth waiting the 30 minutes to proceed with your practice or if it's just time to send your kids home for the evening. Now, in regards to games and those delays, because there's such a big orchestration of getting concessions set, getting umpires on site, we pay those umpires. Once they come here, they're dressed, we have to pay them. When there's a delay, we are going to wait that delay. There will not be a situation where coaches or parents or anyone is going to decide that the game's just not going to happen and go home. If you decide that as a coach that you feel like the game is not going to be played and you are unwilling to wait, that will essentially be a forfeit. So I highly suggest, as a coach, communicate to your families, we're going to wait this out because the team that waits the longest is the team that's more than likely going to get the win. We will figure out first game, second game situations. So if a team is playing at 6 o'clock, they get delayed. The 6 o'clock game has the priority no matter what happens within the weather. We have curfew parameters that we follow for that secondary game. We'll start that secondary game late if need be. And then we have other guidelines that we follow to deem whether that game needs to be completed, made up, or if they played enough duration for the game to count. And the only other thing to say about the rainouts, because of the way that our schedule is laid out, specifically for baseball, because we play on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If we get rained out on Tuesdays, all of our games move to Wednesday. If we get rained out on Thursday, all of our games move to Friday. We are going to try to stay on top of that so that we complete those games without getting these big lulls and making up games 2 weeks later like we've done in the past. Softball is a little bit more complicated because they're Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, but they will still utilize those Wednesdays and Fridays to make those games up.
So coaches, we're going to talk now about when we're in the game and how to make sure our game is flowing seamlessly. We're not having a bunch of issues and the kids are having the best experience possible. So first and foremost, when it comes to umpires, each game will have 2 umpires on the field, with the exception of our mini minors. That means they will be controlling the calls on the field. And we want to make sure that we are respecting our umpires, that we are giving them the due respect that they deserve because they're coming in, bringing their expertise, their time to come and make sure that our kids are having a good experience when they're playing their games. Please also make sure that your parents are not directing anything towards the umpires. Make sure you take the time to speak to your parents to get them in the mindset to make sure that they're not speaking towards the umpires. And if there's ever an appeal or an issue that comes about, we have a process for that. If you feel something happened in a game and you want to appeal, you can first make sure you speak to the VP of your division. And from there, you would just need to make sure you get the details of that situation and send an email to our league email, which is the Lake Wales Little League @gmail.com. And someone will get with you within 24 hours regarding that email. We want to make sure that the appeal is appeal to a call or a rule. And again, that 24 hours is for a cool off period because, things can get heated. We want to make sure that those appeals are made with a clear mind, and the conversations that are had about those are something that we can come to an agreement on, and it can be held, properly.
Also, like Ruby said, with addressing your fans, kind of speaking to our umpires about calls or balls or strikes or judgments, understand that the fans are a reflection of your dugout. So as an umpire, as a league, we're going to stand behind what they are going to call on the field because they are in control of the game. So if they find someone that's in the crowd that they're deeming is a detriment to the game, they will probably come to you as a coach and say, hey, coach, you need to have a conversation with your fan because I'm not going to address them. And from there, they'll either deem that person needs to go home or that you possibly need to have a punishment and possibly go home. And we're going to empower our umpires to not create large situations. So we are going to ask them that if someone is removed from the complex, that we just don't continue play until that situation is gone, and then we continue. So just have all of your people understand that we don't want to cause confusion amongst the kids. We want them to play seamlessly and have fun. So we'll deal with those situations as they arise. Ruby talked about the cool off period when it comes to going home. Let your VP know kind of what happened in a very calm way. Let them know because nothing is going to change in that given night, in the middle of the game. Nothing is going to change. Go home, give that email. Also stress the same way, because the way that we're going to protect the umpires is the same way that we're going to protect you. If the parents have a complaint with something that's going on with their play or the way that someone is speaking to them, we are going to defend you first, and we're going to ask them they may come to us and say, hey, this coach is doing this, this, and this, and we'll give them the same format. Go back, email the Little League with detail as far as what's going on, cool off, and then cooler heads will prevail. And ultimately, the kids will never understand what the adults are having to deal with.
Again, that's the main thing when it comes to while we're out there in general, is making sure that the kids are having the best experience. So one of the things that really comes to mind when I think about conflict on the field is de-escalation. You can kind of get an idea of when something is going to get out of hand, and to the best of your ability, try to get on top of it before it becomes a bigger problem. And language, making sure that first and foremost, you're not using vulgar language or any language that's aggressive or offensive or anything that's going to cause an issue, and listening for that from your fans or parents, making sure that they're not using abusive, offensive, or any kind of language that's going to cause an issue. God forbid your players are using that language. It is not something that should be allowed or tolerated, and should be spoken to directly as soon as it is heard with with that child and their parent, to make sure that it is corrected. But just kind of a quick recap when it comes to language and de-escalating situations, trying to make sure we create and foster an environment that's going to be, positive and without any kind of um, energy that's going to, cause these situations that blow up.
In regards to makeup days or rainout days, just keep in mind, if you have a field practice on a day where games are going to get moved to, we'll communicate that with across the league as far as that makeup day taking place, and just make your parents aware that those practices are going to be canceled because the game is going to take priority. So this year, guys, we've got our regular schedule, but we're also very excited because we're going to do our first in-season tournament. And that's going to take place back in like that back 75% of our schedule. And then it's going to be followed up with the postseason tournament. Now, the way that that's going to lay out, depending on how many teams you have in your league, we're going to set those up where your beginning games are based off of what your regular season rankings are. And then those tournament games will be set and follow a bracket from there. And what will happen during that week is you will have your games still on your specific nights, and then it will lead into a Saturday game by game until we get to a final winner.
Once we get into that in-season tournament, I just want to bring back making sure that we're keeping our fans, keeping our parents, respecting our umpires under control. Once we get into that in-season tournament, any kind of tournament play, competition is going to heighten. That means all of that interaction of potential arguments or potential that extra that happens in the games. We want to make sure we stay on top of that, and keep our parents, keep our players mindful of the things they say, how they're interacting with each other, and making sure we're keeping that competition good and healthy, so that this is something that we can benefit from, and it's not going to be something that causes, blow ups, or, matches that kind of create those situations that we don't like.
Now we're going to talk about pool players. So each team has been instructed to give us a list of 3 pool players. What a pool player is a player that is willing to come out and play for another team that is not their original home team in case of not having enough players to play a game, etc. They may be called in very close to a game time. So that's something that you need to make parents aware of whenever they are volunteering their child to be a pool player. They need to be aware of the fact that they could be called in within 30 minutes prior to a game, and we need them to be here because that's how the team's not going to have to forfeit and be able to actually play their game. So our pool players will all be given to our player agent, Coach Jonathan. He will be the one in charge of calling said pool players. Pool players are not allowed to pitch. That is the one stipulation there. They can play any other position on the field, but they cannot pitch for that team. So that is something to keep in mind if you are missing players and you may only have one pitcher on your team. That is something you're going to have to keep in mind to make sure that you have backups for that position. You can start a game with 8 players. Anything less, that would be a forfeit. But you can start a game with 8 players. Again, if you need a player, that is something that coaches need to be timely about when getting to Coach Jonathan. You should be taking polls in your group. You should be trying to get a head count way ahead of game time. I know last minute situations happen. Kids last minute are running late, etc. That is part of why if you can start with 8, but you know that 9th is coming, that's fine. You wouldn't technically need your pool player then. But if you know at the head of the day you only have 7 players, that's when you need to reach out to Coach Jonathan then, so he can be on top of it too, because the more timely we are getting to him that we need a player, the more timely he can pull a player in for us. So
One of the things that's popped up lately with all our practices, and a lot of times it happens on like off days where it's not a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. It's like a Wednesday or a Friday when the complex feels a little bit more open. We do have one gate that's down by our shop area that we don't have access to completely lock at all times. So that gate gets opened due to the use of the football fields. Just because that gate is open, we do not want any vehicles inside the complex. Please reiterate that to all your coaches, your assistant coaches, your parents, because what I've seen is what it takes is one car to park, and then all of a sudden it becomes a parking lot. And unfortunately, it only takes one child getting hurt to make that seem like a really bad idea. So please, please, please tell everybody, be careful driving around the complex, especially when it gets busy. And then also just no cars inside the complex. Another thing is we've done a really good job. I've seen a lot of teams that are utilizing those batting cages. And I've seen, for the most part, I've even seen a senior team practicing in Crocs. So thank you, thank you, thank you for addressing your teams and telling them no cleats inside the batting cages. That's going to preserve that turf for as long as we can possibly keep it.
All right, guys, it is time. It is time for opening day, and I know everybody's really excited. So one thing I want to talk about is lineup. We are all really excited to represent Lake Wells Little League to our community. And with that, it all starts with you. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Jersey distribution will be on Friday, the 27th. And we have times that have been posted on our flyer and Facebook. During that time also is going to be the basket drop off. So make sure that you come upstairs to Barenko, drop it off to Tammy. That way she can write it down. Give her a little bit of description, just a little bit of information. So for jerseys, you can communicate with your teams to pass them out afterwards. If you say, hey, I'm going to be there at 5 p.m. and you know you're going to be here at 5, have your team show up. Pass them out then, whatever you feel is necessary. Jersey pickup and basket drop off will be Friday, March 27th. Go to Facebook to look at our times, and we can't wait to see you there. Moving on to opening day ceremony. Our opening day ceremony starts at 9 a.m. So please have your teams here because we'd like to take a team photo. So have them here lined up by 8:15, and then we'll take a quick shot. Stage 1 will be located on the left side of baseball and Bajers and kind of towards the back where it's going to be under the trees. There'll be a little flyer to identify where we need to start lining up. It is going to be first come, first serve for that lineup. So the sooner you get there, the sooner we can get you up to stage 2. So moving on from stage 1, once you take your photo, you can bring them to stage 2, which will be on the right side of Majors Field. There will be someone there to help guide. And then we'll enter the field and get started for an amazing open ceremony. We're not going to be having individual photographers here. Instead of that, what we're going to do is we're actually providing self-serve stations. So there'll be like little photo booths set up. All of us have cameras in our pockets. Let's utilize that. And then everybody has control of their own photos at that point. So please remember, we are all volunteers. We are all trying to make everything work in unison and work together. The more support that we have from everyone and the more coordination and organization that we can provide, the smoother of a process we're going to make this. Make sure there's communication with your team and your players. They know where to go. They know where to be stationed at, and then throughout the rest of the day. And this is setting the tone for the rest of the season. Remember, hydration is going to be key. We will have concessions open. I am really, really excited. We are all really excited for opening day. It's going to be an amazing year. It's going to be an amazing season, and we are setting the tone for years to come.